Day, and he is.
I am Aaron Tomlinson.
And once again, we are here sharing the gospel of growing in real time.
Yes, yes.
So before we get started, Aaron, what is in the glass?
I'm just drinking a Merlot tonight, just mellow and light.
Yep, Mellow Merlot.
Yeah, mellow Merlot. How about you?
Me, I'm drinking a Red Bull
Hmm.
because we're down here in Huntsville, um,
Oh, wow.
and so we got to drive back to Dallas, and I need to be awake.
Yeah, for sure.
so no booze tonight.
Good choice.
Yeah, but anyway, for those of you who don't know, I'm just going to go ahead and share it. Is that today is my birthday. It is my birthday. I'm celebrating 62 revolutions around the earth or around the sun. So this is it's a watershed year because I'm actually eligible for Social Security.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Oh man, and it's like, and I think about this because I still remember, like we were in Austin last weekend, and my cousin Tanya came to drop off her daughter at University of Texas for grad school, and so we were talking, and I was telling them, I said, yeah, I remember the day we came to Detroit from Decatur, Illinois. It was July 3rd, 1967. I could tell you what I was wearing. I could tell you
Wow.
what car we were in. All of that. I could tell you who drove and all of that. And so I have this recollection with clarity of my childhood and a lot of past events. And I was thinking about this like in the birthday greetings. I got a birthday shout out from a high school friend that I literally haven't talked to in over 40 years.
Wow.
Literally over 40 years. So I got to put a shout out to him. I'm not going to say it on the show, but I'm going to put it in his comment. Just say, hey, yeah, man, we need to connect. We haven't talked in 40 years,
Yeah, wow.
but he was one of my dudes back in the day. But anyway, I say this to say that I wanted to start off by talking about living your best life. And the reason I was thinking about this is that a lot of us go through life settling. We accept things that we shouldn't, and we go through things that we shouldn't, and we deal with things that we shouldn't.
Right.
Instead of being a better gatekeeper of the people, places, and things that come into our lives. So I was thinking about this because, again, I have like real clarity. Like when I think about relationships, and Maya and I just celebrated our first month anniversary on the 14th. So I'm thinking about that, and I'm thinking about past relationships, and I'm thinking about all the times that I just settled for something.
Hmm.
That I said, okay, this is okay. And instead of actually double clicking on what I really, really want.
Hmm.
And so now I'm in a place where I have that. I have what I really, really want. I have my heart's desire. I have the person who I believe has my best interest at heart, who loves me and all of that. So and then I think about this too, like when we go through our careers. And Aaron, you and I, we've talked about a lot about this off screen. Like we've talked about like what we wanted to do when we were younger, and what we wound up doing, and how do we get to where we are, right? And so there are some people in the audience that are young enough and have enough runway ahead where they can make these course corrections pretty easily,
Right.
and they can steer their way into their best life. They can have the relationship they want. They can have the career that they want, the education that they want, and be around the people that they want in the place that they want to be. So part of this is for them, but for those of us who are like and you're a little bit younger than me, so
About
but
9 years.
but you've crossed the 50, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to give people our age or in our generation a little bit of hope. because you can still change your situation.
Mm-hmm.
You can change the people, the places, the things in your life. And not to say that it's going to be easy, but it can be done. And it really depends on how badly do you want it. And I knew at the time that Maya and I reconnected that I needed a change, and I needed this change like my life depended on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to make some adjustments to, to get that air.
Right.
Like if you're drowning, there are two things that you have to remember. Like if you're like I used to do air sea rescue, and when you're going down to fish someone out of the ocean, the first thing you have to get them to do is to calm down, because if they're flailing about, they're a threat to both themselves and to you. So one is that you have to look at your situation and kind of take a chill pill, right? You can't be flailing your way out of it. The second thing is that when rescue comes, and it may be a person or it may be a situation, it could be a number of different things, but when rescue comes, you got to pay attention to the instruction.
Yep.
You got to watch what's going on and be ready to grab onto that life-saving hand or device. Yeah. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so these are things that you have to learn to observe and to discern when you're trying to live your best life. Because if you're not, what happens is you wind up going through flailing and just no rhyme or reason. And I know we said we're going to this segues into some election stuff, right? Because here Trump was like really confident when Biden was the guy, and he had every reason to be, because he really had him beat. I mean, there was the debate performance was a debacle. The interview with Stephanopoulos was a debacle. He had press conferences that were bad. It was just bad. So Biden realized, okay, I need to drop out. So now Trump has to face Kamala Harris. And here's the issue, right? So when I'm talking about flailing about, now this guy has no direction. He has no focus. He has nothing. All the things that he had planned to use on Biden are now moot. So now he's flailing about. And what's happening is that his campaign is sinking, just like someone who's in the ocean, who's resisting the instruction, not being calm, that person begins to sink. Yep. And he's sinking the same way. And so I want to use that as an example, because if you don't assess your situation carefully and then just start flailing about, you're flopping on the deck like a fish, right? You can't survive like that. So when we're trying to live our best life, first thing is, and again, sometimes situations are dire. They can be health situations, they can be financial situations, they can be situational situations. And the thing is that you can really get into a panic about these things, or you can say, okay, let me compose myself and walk through this. So that's my introduction to this.
Yeah, it's funny because when you said at the very beginning, when you said settling for less, I used to have a message that I would do called "Settling for Less but Crying Out for More."
Wow.
That was one of my favorite. I mean, this is a phrase that's just stayed with me. And this is, of course, because of my clinical background, I'm sure. The first thing that came to my mind was depression. That sometimes we can get in a cycle of depression. So I want to approach this from a little bit of a mental health perspective at first.
Okay.
Because to really change things in our life, things that we're not happy with, it requires that we take action. We have to do something.
Yeah.
But if you're struggling, if you're at a place of depression or anxiety, or a lot of people have both depression and anxiety, you get to this place of overwhelm where you literally go into, so most people think about, our defense mechanisms as being fight or flight, right? That's what we talk about, stress response, fight or flight. But it's actually, if you want to get technical about it, it's fight, flight, or freeze.
Okay. Yeah.
And it works in that way. So fight, flight, or freeze. So for most people, if there's a threat and you have an active response where you can take out that threat, and you know you can take out that threat, probably going to do that. So perfect example is you see a black widow spider.
Yeah.
You see a snake in your yard, brown recluse. You know, if I see a brown recluse, I don't think about running away from that thing because I know I can just squash it, right?
Yeah.
So actually fight is our first active response, because then you just eliminate the threat. It's gone.
Right.
The second response is, I'm not sure I can take out this threat.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get away from it as quickly as possible. Still an active response, still effective, right?
Yeah.
But what happens when, I'm going to use a lot of hyperbole here. My house is surrounded by people with weapons or a mob that wants to kill me, and I don't stand a chance against the mob, and I can't run away from them. Then biologically, evolutionary wise, we are wired to play dead.
Yeah.
I'll pretend to be dead and maybe they'll leave me alone. That moves me into freeze. Now, when you're in freeze, your body literally, now this is hard for people to grasp, but you literally can't do anything because your body's in freeze. Now, the problem that we have when it comes to stress is that that's the only response that we have. So in this modern day, our threats are not so much at our survival, but at our quality of life. But we'll respond the same way. So if something comes up and threatens my quality of life and I can crush it, I'll just respond to it. If it's a problem, I'll attack it, I'll get it done, and it's over. If I get too many things coming at me and I feel like I can't handle them, or some real big thing coming at me and I feel like I can't handle it, then I might start to do a pattern of avoidance. So a lot of procrastination is a result of someone who is just, I'm not going to say overwhelmed yet, but they've got so much stress coming at them that they've moved into this anxiety response. And so instead of addressing things in the moment, they're avoiding them. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. I'm going to run from this problem, this situation. So both of those. So when you get away from fight and you get into flight, now you're getting into a problem where you might start settling for less. Yeah. Right. Or being depressed. I don't want to get out of bed. I want to avoid my responsibilities today. I don't have any motivation because I'm looking at all this stuff that's causing me distress. Now I can get to a place, if I stay in that place too long, I can get into a place of overwhelm where I go into a freeze response at what's threatening my quality of life. Now I feel like I can't do anything. This is usually when you go to the doctor, if you go to the doctor, or you go to a therapist, if you go to a therapist, that they'll diagnose you as depressed. So the problem isn't necessarily depression in the traditional sense. The problem is that we're at a state of overwhelm. And so we're just not able, as much as we want to, do things that will change our life. We're not at a place where we have those active responses available to us anymore. Literally, because your sympathetic nervous system has shut you down. Yeah. So then what can happen? Well, no, I'll come back to that later. Because I want to bring in, I keep emphasizing this with people. So many people are overwhelmed right now. So many people are shut down right now. And I work with a certain population, right? So I realize this doesn't apply to everybody. But I'm seeing more and more people that don't have these active responses, problem-solving responses, and they just feel overwhelmed. And so I think we have to consider, we are living in a time, and I've said this before on this program, but I want to say it again. We're living in a time that historians will study just this time period, from like 2016, probably to 2024, like a 10-year time frame or 8-year time frame, that there might be more books and documentaries done on this than World War II or the Civil War, right? Because we're living in really stressful times. So, I mean, let's just start with the pandemic, right? Pandemic, people's responses to the pandemic, dividing of the nation, a president who refuses to cede power for the first time, incites, foments, whatever word you want to use, an insurrection, an attack on the Capitol building, as much as people want to deny it. I watched it live.
Yep.
Unprecedented. And then that candidate gets primaried again to be the candidate again. We elect the oldest president that we've ever had, and we watch this decline in 4 years, right?
Right.
And we're all sitting here at 2024. I think if we're honest, we're like, really? We've got these same choices again?
Yeah.
And it's two old white dudes stuck in the same era,
yeah,
and the same time period and the same generation, right?
Yep.
So then you, in a 3-week time span or whatever it was, week's time span,
yeah,
you have an assassination attempt on one of the candidates, Donald Trump, right?
Yeah.
And then you have Biden drop out.
Yep.
And then I'm going to use this term and I'm going to clarify it for people because I don't want people to think that I'm making any kind of racist trope here. But you have a dark horse candidate who rises up. So for people that don't know what that means, a dark horse candidate is just, you talk about having a horse in the race, right? When there were 2 horses in the race, we all knew who they were. And then all of a sudden, this horse comes out of nowhere as though it came out of the darkness, right? Nobody saw it coming. And now you have a candidate that nobody saw coming, and woman candidate, not just a female candidate, biracial candidate.
Yep.
Right? And then you have AI. I mean, there's so much right now that we could be overwhelmed about.
Yeah.
Regardless of which side you're on the aisle. I mean, if you're on the Trump side of the aisle, you think the country's going to totally go to hell. If you believe everything he says, then you think we're going to have a 1929 like depression, which is ridiculous.
Right.
I mean, or if you're for, I'm going to quote Barack Obama, if you're for hope and change, you're worried that the other guy's going to get in, or you're worried about Project 2025. And there's just so much that has come in that we have no control over. And that doesn't even count your personal shit. That doesn't even count the personal problems and life problems and relationships and financial problems. We've got inflation. I mean, we've just got so much stuff coming at us. So it's very easy for people to go into that shutdown place. Now, I'm going to make these comments about the election just because I want to. Because I've spoken a lot on my own channel, on this program, about the changing of the ages, the moving out of the age of Pisces and moving into the age of Aquarius.
Aquarius, yeah.
And when I was looking at the election, I was like, we have, and I don't mean this offensively. I'm not saying this offensively. Everybody ages.
Yep.
But we have 2 old white dudes who are, both of them, even though obviously Biden's more progressive.
Yep.
But they're still representing for us the old age, right?
Right.
Now you have Kamala Harris, who represents the new age. Now, watch this. In the age of Aquarius, the sign of Aquarius is the man with the water pitcher in his hand. And the story about Aquarius is that he's watering the gardens of heaven, which in the time period was considered to be a woman's job. So you have a man. So here's the sign, a man doing a woman's job, right?
Right. Okay.
Now we have a sign
Yeah.
of a woman
Doing a man's job.
traditionally been a man's job.
Right.
That clearly represents, I mean, she's, by being biracial, she's a member of the fastest growing group of people in our nation, in our country.
Yep.
Biracial people.
Biracial people. That's right.
And so she clearly represents the new. And so for me, I have no problem going on record. We'll see how well this ages. And I don't want anybody to get complacent. And whether you like Donald Trump or hate Donald Trump, you got to understand the times, man. I mean, I'm thinking, if I want to use a biblical reference, there was the tribe of Issachar. There was the men of Issachar, the Bible says in one place, that they understood the times and knew what God's people were supposed to do.
Yeah.
So if you understand the times, then you need to understand that Trump is not going to win this election, and he's going to go down in flames.
Yeah.
Hate and racism and misogyny spewing out of his mouth. I mean, they're trying everything they can to make this man stay on message, which I think is ridiculous. They want him to talk policy. What policy?
Right.
Policy. You're going to bring up immigration? You didn't get the wall built. You didn't get Mexico to pay for it like you said you were going to in 2016. And you killed the bill, the bipartisan bill that would have brought the biggest reform to immigration that we've had in our lifetime.
Yep.
You killed that because you wanted to run on that issue, and you openly said this to people.
Yep. Didn't want to give the Democrats a victory.
When they say, well, he just needs to talk. I mean, what I see is a lot of people clinging to the old, saying, well, if he would talk about policy, then he could still win this election. No, he can't. Well, what policy is he going to talk about? Inflation? People don't even understand. I mean, I don't know why we think the president controls inflation.
No.
Especially when it's worldwide. But an argument can be made that all the stimulus and stuff that went out during Trump's administration is a significant contributing factor to the inflation that we're experiencing today. So how's he going to talk about that?
Yep.
So all he's got left then are these schoolyard name calling techniques that he's used, and people are tired of it. And you watch his stuff now, and it's just old and dried up and worn out. And you watch the stuff that Kamala Harris and what's the guy from Wisconsin?
Walz.
Yeah, Tim Walz are doing.
Walz, yeah.
And it's exciting. People are excited. Young people are excited.
Yep.
And she's talking about we won't go back. So I think all of this actually is a sign to us of the shift of the ages. That's my take on that. I know I'm getting really off.
No, I'm gonna ride with that for a minute, right?
Go ahead.
Because I think that in order to live your best life, you have to be willing to accept a changing of the ages in your own life. In other words, you may be in the Pisces of your life, and Aquarius is upon you, but you're not discerning the season.
Yeah.
Like you use a biblical reference, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we're not discerning the season, it may be time to plant, and you're looking to reap, and your season is going to be completely out of whack, and then you're going to be disillusioned, disappointed, because okay, you think I'm doing all the right things, I'm doing something, I'm not being complacent, I'm active in my own life's journey, but I'm not seeing a result. Well, you're not seeing the result because you're not discerning the season. So if there is and let me just say this, that in order for you to actually live your best life, you have to be prepared for a change of season, because I can almost, and this is going to really go out on a limb here. I don't think that you can expect to move into the season of your best life staying in the season that you're in.
No, you can't.
You're going to have to experience a shift in order to make that happen. So, with that being said, segueing back to the politics, because I'm feeling this right now.
Yeah, I'm too.
As a preacher, I'm saying I feel my help coming.
Yeah.
But I was listening to a news broadcast today, and they said that the Federal Reserve Board of Governors meets next week.
Right.
And this is a really pivotal time for the Fed governors to meet, because there is anti-inflationary and anti-recessionary pressure that's being brought upon the Fed to lower interest rates, and to lower them significantly, because the rise in interest rates has reduced the supply, has reduced the money supply, and so people are taking austerity measures. Now, granted, these were things that had to be done because there was a pent-up demand for rising interest rates. Interest rates were held artificially low for such a long time that the business cycle mandated that interest rates go up. Okay, so you make that correction and interest rates go up. So now a home loan that was once 2.5% is now 7.5%, right? It was 5% jump, which is huge. If you calculate The difference between, like, if you say a $200,000 mortgage and you calculate the difference between that 30-year mortgage at 2.5% versus 7.5%, it's a huge. I mean, you're paying. I think it's like 5 times more in total payments.
Of course, yeah.
So so now there's this pressure that's being put on the Fed to reduce interest rates. And so I was listening. They had an interview with one of the former Fed governors, and he was saying that, okay, that the Fed governors have to wait for all of the information to come in. They have to aggregate it, collate it, and understand it so that they can make a decision as to what the interest rate move will be. Now, here's the challenge, right? That if interest rates are lowered, the Republicans are going to cry foul, because that is a move that could absolutely influence and impact and inform the November election.
Sure.
But if they hold serve on interest rates, the Democrats are going to cry foul, because they're going to say, well, the Fed is responding to business, and they're not lowering the interest rate and giving the people the relief that they need, and this benefits the Republicans in November. So this is a changing of the season where the Fed actually has an active role in the selection of our next government, because not only if interest rates fall, and they fall significantly, not only will Harris and Walz win the White House, but the Democrats might pull it out in the Congress as well. And if you want to look for a forebearer of this, look at the elections in the UK on the 4th of July. Not only was the leadership change from Tories to Labour, the entire parliament shifted, and it shifted in a historic way, and it was very similar to what this could actually be a harbinger of November for the United States, and the Republicans are literally shitting their pants right now. So what am I getting at is that, again, you're looking at a change of season in terms of the leadership, the titular head of each of the parties, but you're also looking at the underlying structure also being changed, and maybe that this represents a shift in the best life of the country. I don't know. And that could be, if you were to say, well, Derrick, that's really a stretch, I would say you're absolutely right. That's a stretch. That's a reach. That's a leap. But if you look at it in terms of, like what happened in the UK, you look at how the far right was repudiated in France, and this could be, it could be literally an Aquarian age of politics.
Yeah.
And so maybe our country is about to live its best life. I don't know. Like I said, and let me just say this. I got to say this because there are a whole bunch of people out here that they're supporting Jill Stein and Marianne Williamson and Cornel West and RFK Jr. And guys, listen, when you talk about a third-party vote, if you look at it historically, a third-party vote, the only time a third-party vote has, well, let me see. No, I take that back. It's never benefited the Democrats. It's always benefited the Republicans. Well, no, there was one time when it did benefit. It did benefit the Democrats, and that was in 1992 with Bill Clinton. Ross Perot siphoned off enough of the Republican vote to get Bill Clinton elected. And so that's the one exception. But every other time, it's always been the third party vote impacts the Democrats more than Republicans. And the other thing too is I just got this is a segue, and bear with me for just a second because I'm making an appeal to people here, and it's this that you can say, well, I'm voting my conscience. I'm voting. Listen, if you want to move the country further to the left, if that's your thing, then what you need to do is you need to get the most viable left-leaning candidate elected. And Cornel West has no hope of winning. Marianne Williamson has no hope of winning. RFK Jr. has no hope of winning. None of these people have any hope. Jill Stein, none of them, right? And the reason for this is that, okay, so like you're talking about the age of Aquarius and shifting of the guard kind of thing. None of these third parties have a presence in local politics. Not one. Not one. And Tip O'Neill said all politics is local. If you're not active at the grassroots, you're not going to pull off anything in general elections. So that being said, if you want to really effect change, get Harris and Waltz in there and then put pressure on them, put pressure on progressive candidates, put pressure on Congress, write to your congressman, call your congressman, email the president, and force them to move in the direction that you're moving. And then as more progressive policy is implemented and people see the effects of it and it begins to benefit more people, then we can start talking about third parties and things like that. But anyway.
Yeah, so a couple things people don't understand about politics, and I'm no expert. I'm not a political scientist, but I have relatives that are, and that have worked for senators on their campaigns, state representatives on their campaigns. I don't want to say too much because I don't have their permission. But you have to understand, they've told me this and confirmed this, that campaigning and governing are that they're not even, it's not even apples and oranges. It's not even fruits and vegetables. It's like fruits and baseballs. And in other words, here's what I'm saying. Like, they're campaigning to get your vote. So there's going to be a lot of messaging. There's going to be a lot of spinning. There's going to be a lot of maybe even promises and things that are made that can't be kept. And they know this. They know they can't govern off the way that they're campaigning. Right. So that's the first thing. So don't hear something that a candidate says, just take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
But here's how it works on people, the campaigning side of it. When you go into this fight or flight mode, or this shutdown mode, or this overwhelm mode, what literally happens in the brain is that all the energy, not all the energy, but if you think about it, if I need to fight or run, where's all my energy going to go? Is it going to go to my thinking? Is it going to go to my critical thinking? So all that, literally, not all, but a lot of the blood flow and the energy is going to go into the limbic system of the brain.
Right.
And you're going to feel it in your body. You're going to have an emotional response.
Lizard brain.
Yeah. And your limbic system, which is what they call the reptilian brain, it runs all the basic functions in the body and stuff like that. It will literally start to swell if you're under too much stress and trauma. And so what happens is that you do not have optimal access to critical thinking, because critical thinking happens in the neocortex and specifically in what we call the frontal lobe.
Yeah.
So this is deliberate. If I can scare you about something and then put messaging with the scare, I'm accomplishing two things. Your critical thinking is not as involved, so I have a better chance of getting my message past any gatekeepers.
Right.
That's number one.
Very
and
well
number two, I've created an emotional association with a candidate or with a platform or with a policy. It's the same reason that you see beer commercials with, because beer's primarily marketed to men still. Yeah. And I got this fly, sorry. And you see, cardboard cutout of a woman in a bikini holding a 12-pack of Bud Light or something.
Yeah.
Right? So they're depending on that erotic response that a male will often automatically have seeing a beautiful woman or a desirable woman, and associate that with their product, so that you're making your decisions based on emotional association, not based on anything else.
Right.
So people oftentimes vote third party. Come around to what you're saying. They'll vote third party because they're angry. And anger is a fight or flight response.
Right.
I'm angry at the system. Neither one is really watching out for my interests. Neither one is helping me. I'm angry, so F both parties. You're making a limbic system response. So here's what I would suggest to people. Try to shut out the noise, meaning try to shut out all the political ads, all of them, and just go watch the candidates. Listen to their speeches in full, not just sound bites. It's all over YouTube. I mean, it's everywhere. Like, you have access to the whole thing, right? And then just listen to what they're saying and try not to get emotional about it, and just think through critically some of the things they're saying. Now, with that in mind, again, campaigning and governing,
two different things. Yep.
Totally different things, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know why I feel compelled to say this, but I'm going to say this anyway, because I heard this on the radio today. Because I listen to right-wing radio just to keep myself and not live in an echo chamber, right?
Yeah.
And there's this guy on in the morning in the Denver station that's libertarian, but definitely leans to the right of things.
Sure.
And he was talking about tax cuts and raising taxes. They're going to raise your taxes. If the Democrats get in, they're going to raise your taxes. You need to realize that the "your" that they're talking to, that's just basic macroeconomics. The "your" that they're talking to, and Biden said this over and over and over again, are people that make $400,000 or more a year, right?
Right.
And really what they're trying to do, but what would be ideal, is to tax corporations. Now, here's what I don't think people understand about how business works, and maybe they do, but I know there's a lot of people out there that probably don't. A person who has a shit ton of money, whatever you think that is, a billionaire, millionaire anymore isn't that?
Yeah.
So either a multimillionaire, billionaire, someone who owns a corporation, someone who owns a successful, effective small business, they have the opportunity to buy most of their stuff through their business.
Right.
Can put their cars through their business. In some cases, they can put their homes through their business. They can buy all kinds of things through their business that are tax write-offs for their business. Here's the important part, Derrick, that I want to get across to people. They're paying for everything you and I are paying for with pre-tax dollars.
Right.
So if I'm getting taxed, whatever it is, 28% or whatever on my income tax, I don't know what it is, and I'm going out and buying a car, I'm buying that car with money that's already been taxed. Whereas a business owner is buying their car with pre-tax dollars.
Right.
And showing a loss.
Right.
That's the biggest difference between, like, say, the working class and the business class, is the way the system is set up. They're buying everything with pre-tax dollars before they even pay a penny of tax.
Right.
And you're buying everything with your dollars after they take their portion before you get your paycheck.
There's another thing, another component to that, another spin to it, is that when you look at wealthy people and you say, okay, you lower the top nominal tax rate to, like, say 28%, right? And that 28%, again, you're paying for everything with pre-tax dollars, your home, your car, your boats, luxury items.
And that includes, I'm sorry, I just got to interject. That includes repairs. That includes, like, oil changes.
Yeah, everything.
All of that's getting paid for with pre-tax.
Pre-tax dollars. And then what's left, what you're paying tax on, is significantly less.
Right.
Right. So basically the nominal tax rate for the wealthy is significantly lower because all of your necessities are being paid for with pre-tax dollars, and then what you have left is taxed at a lower rate. So someone else, let's say the top tax bracket is say 28%, and that hits at, let's say, $350,000. Now, $350,000 is not a lot of money to make per year. I can tell you that, right? So that, say that person and someone who's making 5 million, they're paying the same nominal tax rate, except that person that's making 5 million, they're an entrepreneur. They're running everything through their own LLC, and they're basically living their life off pre-tax dollars. So whatever income that they have, whatever money is taxed less, but they're not buying anything out of that. They're not consuming out of that. Whereas you and I, we're making $350,000 and we're being taxed at 28%, but we're paying for everything with post-tax dollars. That's the point.
Yeah, and so that's so these things are so nuanced. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Like, these things are really, really complicated.
Yeah,
and they're very nuanced. And if you just take sound bites and you just take campaign slogans and make your decisions based on that, you're just falling for the con.
Right.
But yeah, anyway, I mean, we don't need to get in the weeds with that.
Let me say something about critical thinking, right? And guys, y'all hear me on this, because Aaron and I, we agree on a lot of things, we disagree on a lot of things, but we were both, and I feel safe in saying this, we're both very anti-Trump. Okay.
Oh yeah.
That being said, you and I both made the mistake, or maybe not the mistake, of watching the debate in its entirety.
Yep.
Now, I remember you and I, we're watching this and we're texting each other back and forth like, holy fuck. Because here's the thing, you want your guy to win. You want your guy to, and at least to give a good showing where you can say, okay, well, if you add spin to this, you could spin this way. No, there was no spin to save this guy. The debate was a debacle for Biden. Okay. And there was no other way to put that. And I'm thinking about this, and I was listening to the Republican or the conservative pundits afterward, that they were as giddy as schoolgirls. This is like a fever dream for them. And
that's so true.
And when you have critical thinking, when your critical thinking mechanism is turned on, you can look at the guy who you prefer or the person you prefer and conclude this guy's a fuck up, right? And because critical thinking allows you to do that, it allows you to put your emotion aside and say, okay, based on the facts, based on the evidence, based on reality, what I observe with my 5 senses, I can honestly say that that night gave me no hope. That night depressed. And we were talking about that. We were like, shouldn't have watched. It's like, how when you're on the freeway and there's a horrible accident and you look over there and you see all the carnage and you're like, oh man, I shouldn't have looked. But you looked, right? And because, like, again, critical thinking would say, okay, whatever happened over here is pretty bad. I need to kind of, veer off and focus on what I'm focusing on. But we watched that train wreck. We watched that train wreck and we were like, texting each other in real time, like, oh my God. So what you're saying is absolutely right. You have to look at things objectively. And this is one of the things that bothers me about the people who follow Donald Trump, is that they don't engage any meaningful critical thinking, because if they did, they would look at this and they say they would be like in I don't know, fight, flight, or freeze. I mean, there would be some kind of response, because what's happening is a train wreck. It's a shit show. And when you try to get them to acknowledge that, it's just they refuse to acknowledge it. And that's the part that that troubles me. But again, talking about living your best life, I think that we're at a juncture where we as a nation have the opportunity to choose our best national life.
And these two areas are really connected because again, we settle oftentimes because we're activated in a fear response, right?
Yep.
And I've watched, like, for the last 3 weeks, I've watched every speech. I've watched every speech that they've done on the campaign trails, because those are just stump speeches and they say the same thing in every rally, right? But like, I've watched Trump's news conferences that he's called and all that stuff, and everything he says is designed to put fear in you. We're gonna have a stock market crash like 1920. It was so funny. He was talking on Fox News. I think it was yesterday. Well, not Fox News, but he gave his news conference, and Fox News was covering it. And they're showing that on their Chiron at the bottom there, they're showing the stock market going up. Because they have the Dow Jones, and they're showing it going up. And Trump says, the stock market is crashing. And I mean, within 3 seconds, they take that down.
That's hilarious.
It's all designed, you're not going to have a country anymore. It's going to be a third world country. Immigrants are going to come over and take your job. Did you see yesterday that he said, I'm sorry for getting political, everybody, but did you see yesterday that he said 100% of the new jobs went to immigrants? And he stops and says, oh, that number's way higher. They think it's 100%, but it's way higher than 100%.
What's more than 100%, big guy?
Because the government just hadn't seen it yet.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. But here's my point. If you're if you listen to that guy, you can't help, and you believe him, you can't help but be afraid, which is just going to increase your level of fight, flight, freeze, sense of overwhelm, sense of powerlessness, and you're going to be less inclined to engage in your own life. At the end of the day, yes, what government does, it does impact our life, but it doesn't make or break our life.
Right.
It influences it, but it does not dominate it.
Right.
So we can spend so much time worrying about things that we really can't control and ignoring the stuff that we can control and that we can do in our own lives. In other words, some of us probably need to put away the phones, myself included, at times, turn off the TV, put away the phone, put away social media, and get engaged in your own life. Get engaged in making something happen in your own life, and realize that if you feed too much on that toxicity, that it's going to only increase your sense of overwhelm, which is going to prevent you from being able to take the steps that you need to take and do the things that you need to do in order to start living your best life.
And to be honest, like when we talk about the autonomic responses, fight, flight, or fawn, or freeze, that you really can't act in a reasonable fashion when you're acting upon any of those.
Right.
People say, oh, well, you're gonna respond in one of those 3 ways. No, the alternative to that is that you have a reasoned, measured response. One that comes from, engaging the frontal lobe, as you said, and engaging your critical thinker. And I think that, like, one of the biggest things that I think is an inhibition to living your best life is when you depend on those autonomic responses. And like you said, if somebody's saying something that constantly makes you angry, well, then your response is going to be reactionary. It's always going to be pushback as hard as I feel like I'm being pushed. So you're not thinking, you're not really saying, okay, well, why is this pressure being applied to me? And what is the end game of this pressure being applied to me? Now you're doing some critical thinking because you're reverse engineering this and trying to figure out, okay, what is my best response to this? And you cannot live your best life without making good responses, without making good choices. So again, to your point, Aaron, disengage from things like, man, I hear this thing all the time. To go back to politics again, people saying, well, I hope that the media is just as critical about Trump's mental decline as they were Biden's. Okay, if they don't, then what? If the media keeps ignoring this and they're not willing to face it head on, are you willing to make a critical decision or make a decision based on critical thinking, critical analysis, based on what you see? Because the other thing too is that there's so many people, they say, oh well, the media is just telling us what to think. Well, you don't have to think what the media tells you to think.
Right.
You don't have to live on the diet of what mainstream media presents, or even alternative media. I mean, whether you're ABC, CBS, CNN, or whether you're Newsmax, OANN, or whatever, Fox, it doesn't matter. At some point you have to turn this off, or let's say this, because you said something really important too. You said, okay, you listen to a lot of conservative talk radio. Why? Because it keeps you from being in the echo chamber. And you do need to pay attention to what other outlets are saying, because otherwise, like you said, you run the risk of being in an echo chamber. And then what you do is you engage in cognitive dissonance, and then that leads to you engaging in confirmation bias. So in other words, I'm not looking for anything that's going to stimulate any critical thought in my life. I'm only going to research what I believe to be true, and I'm looking for points to reinforce what I believe to be true, instead of actually trying to critically discern what's going on.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and the other part, I guess I would say, is like, and I'm approaching this from sort of an inside-out perspective. Again, going back to just settling versus taking action to change your life. You have to pay attention to what is your state of mind. If you are in a fear-based state, mm-hmm. you are not at your best. Because again, all your energy is going into the limbic system.
Yep.
And not the frontal lobe. So the frontal lobe is where you have access to creativity and problem solving. It's where you have access to logic and reason, thus critical thinking. But in order to do that, you have to be in sort of a balanced state. You don't want to necessarily be in, okay, so we have fight or flight typically, and then we have what they call rest and digest, right?
Yep.
The healthy person is in sort of a teeter-totter balance of that all the time. You don't want to be in one to the exclusion of the other, because a person who's in just chilling all the time, they're not going to be active. They'd be really creative, but they're not going to be able to take action on their creative ideas. Yeah. But if you recognize that you're in this stress response, let me just give some practical stuff. If you recognize that you're in this stress response, try to identify what's causing any of the stress, any of it. It could be something like, I know when I'm stressed out, and sometimes I compulsively chase stress, which is not good. People can do that. Meaning what I do is, I know I shouldn't be watching political stuff, but I'm watching it anyway, because I know I'm stressed out, because I'm just interested in it. But tune out to social media, or if that's causing you stress, or tune out to, like one of the things I did, Derrick, was I followed at the beginning of the year, I followed a bunch of people on one of the social media platforms that was talking about wealth creation. Mm-hmm. And the problem was, from my perspective, everybody that was talking about wealth creation was saying, I became a millionaire in 5 years, and here's what I did, or Because at the end of the day, they're trying to sell their program or whatever it is, right?
Yep.
And I found myself resentful and stressed because I'm like, well, why aren't I there? Why is that going on for them and it's not going on for me? Oh, there's all this stuff I have to do, and I'm only doing this little bit portions of it over here. And so what I originally thought would inspire me and help me and educate me, I began to find out was stressing me the fuck out. And causing me to compare where they were to where I was, which was making me feel smaller, making me feel less self-confident. And so even though I went at it with best of intentions and it sounds like good advice, to somebody, hey, educate yourself. Here's a way to educate yourself for free, right? Listen to podcasts, trying to follow, people that study the stock market and they, completely divergent opinions of what was going to happen in the stock market. And then that makes me edgy about, oh, well, should I be selling my stock or should I be investing in bonds? You know what I mean? So I had to clean all that stuff out so that I wouldn't see that stuff anymore, because it wasn't helping me, not because the information was good or bad, right or wrong, effective or helpful or unhelpful, but because of the state it was putting me in.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to manage and be aware of our state first. So a couple things I'd say is, stay away from stressful stuff. Stay away from stressful movies. If you're stressed out, don't be watching thrillers and horror movies and stuff like that. If that's your thing, tune some of that stuff out, and then prioritize your sleep. More and more studies are coming out. The most important thing for our health above all else, everybody talks about diet, exercise, weight, all that stuff. Sleep, they're finding out, is the most important. So prioritize getting a good night's sleep. It's amazing if you're sleep deprived often, how much better and more functional you'll be if you just stack together 3 or 4 good healthy nights sleep.
Yeah.
And there's, ways to do that, but we could do a whole episode on sleep, but for people that are interested, Andrew Huberman has done loads of really good scientific, exceptional stuff, interviewing experts and stuff on how to manage your sleep and things that you can do, simple things that you can do to change and work with your sleep pattern. So that's number 1, is prioritize your sleep. Number 2, prioritize getting your circulation going, preferably in the morning. Like if I could give somebody a routine, go to bed the same time every night, wake up in the morning, first thing, drink some water and get some exposure to some UV rays, because that tells your brain it's morning, it's time to wake up. It starts to reset your circadian rhythm. Yeah. And then just do some movement, do some stretches, do some push-ups, go for a walk, something like that, first things in the morning. And just those little changes will help you, especially if you're in that freeze response. And I know this sounds a little paradoxical, but these are simple things that you can do. Nobody's asking you to attack your problems. Nobody's asking you to fix and go out and live your best life. I'm just saying, get a good night's sleep, drink some water in the morning, get your blood going, do that for a couple weeks and see how you feel.
Yep.
That's my practical side of living your best life.
Well, and that's really good, because our buddy Jimmy Ligon, Jimmy has been, I think he's been doing like 12,000 steps every day. And he's been doing that for about 2 or 3 weeks now. I'm seeing him posting and he's doing that. Well, I'm nowhere near close to the number of steps that Jimmy is. I'll be completely honest. But what I have started doing is 2 weeks ago, I started walking a mile. And then after the first day, the second day, I said, okay, the last 100 yards of the walk, I'll sprint. And I did that. And then I said, okay, I can walk, sprint. And so what I did is I started off at 19 minutes. Now I'm like at 13 and a half.
I love that because we have to start where we're at and start moving the needle. Yeah. And just gradually, this doesn't have to be a big deal for people. It can be small incremental changes in their routine and their patterns, and it can make a big difference. So let me ask you, you've been doing this for the last couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. Do you notice a change in the way you feel?
A huge change. huge change. And so let me say this: like we went to Walmart today, shopping for Maya's son starting college, and normally, that level of shopping would have wore me out. I would have just been like, oh man, my legs hurt, my back hurts. I'm like, I'm good. Let's go. You know, and we had to, tote things up from the car up to the third floor here in the dorm and all of this other stuff, and I feel pretty good.
Gotta go back to Walmart because I forgot to give us a bag. So you're doing that.
Okay.
Card is still over there.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Love you. Oh, Maya says she had to go back to Walmart.
Oh man. Yeah, we're at our hour, and I know you got to drive back. So
Yeah.
you need to land the plane, or
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just say this in closing. I want to say this because no matter who you are, no matter where you are, I think it was Arthur Ashe that said this. He said, do what you can with what you have where you are. And a lot of us, we're looking for ideal conditions to transition from our worst life to our best life. We're looking for all of the pieces to be in place, and they don't necessarily have to be. And I'm going to pick on a book by Bishop T.D. Jakes. He wrote a book called Reposition Yourself about 10 years, not so long than that, almost about 15 years ago. And what the premise of the book was that a truly changed life begins with incremental steps. It's not sea changes that make the big difference. It's the small things. And so I think that what happens is that as we're trying to find the key to our best life, we're looking for the sea change. We're looking for the big impact. We're looking for the home run. And don't get me wrong, at 62, I'm not bunting anymore in life. I'm not looking for a dinger in life anymore. I'm swinging for the fences at every ball that comes my way. But again, that's me, and that's like my personality. And I'm not saying that that's going to work for everybody. If you could, whatever you could do to advance yourself, like on the playing field of life, do it. If you can find something, something incremental, something simple, something easy, because it's easy to, like, you say, okay, I want to change, I want to alter my fitness journey. Okay, it may start with just walking 100 yards. You may not be able to walk more than that, but if you walk 100 yards, you're running laps on everybody that's on the couch.
Yeah.
So start where you are with what you have and do what you can. And until you can do more, be happy that you can do what you can do, and eventually, you're going to see improvement, and that's the key. What you want to think about in terms of your best life, whether this is your personal life, whether it's your business life, whether it's your family life, whether it's your political life. Incremental changes. Do what you're able with what you have, and keep doing that. Be consistent. And if you're consistent, you'll see the change. Mm-hmm. And when you start seeing the change, then you'll say, okay, I can do a little bit more. I can push myself a little bit more. And before you know it, your entire life is changed. And I'm telling you what, that, at 62, I could easily say that there's a lot more runway behind me than ahead of me. But at the same time, if there's less runway ahead of me, I'm going to learn how to get the plane in the air faster.
Yeah. 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 A couple things came up. Tommy Stewart says perfection is the enemy of good, or something like that. For sure. I would say any comparison is a killer. So this is my closing remarks. Comparison is a killer, because if you compare yourself to someone that you think you're doing better than, that can lead you to complacency.
Yep.
If you compare yourself to someone who's doing better than you, it can lead you to, like I was talking about, like what I was experiencing, like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? How come I'm not doing this? Everybody's different. Some people might see that and get really, really, really motivated. You got to pay attention to your own state. And I think, I think it was Tom Brady that said, he went out every day and competed against himself.
Yep.
He tried to be just a little bit better each day than he was the day before. And so I like that. And that's what I hear you saying with the incremental changes. I'm gonna do what I can do. And then once I've done that for a little bit, I'm going to do just a little bit more, just be just a little bit better. But yeah, definitely perfectionism is a killer, because perfectionism will put you in that fight or flight and you'll just say, fuck it. And do anything.
Somebody who I really love is Gary Vaynerchuk, right? Gary V. I love this guy because, he's like a coach, a business coach, a motivational speaker. And he'll tell you in a minute, he said, I'm not trying to compete with Tony Robbins. I'm not trying to compete with Grant Cardone. He said, my only competition is the guy in the mirror. He said, I have to beat yesterday's version of me every day. And that was something that was profound to me. And so like what you were saying is like, you listen to all these investment gurus and you're like, oh my God, why am I not doing this? Because I've done that too. I'm like, what do they know that I don't know? And it's funny because like I was having a discussion with somebody about about motivational speaking and coaching and everything, and so this guy who's the guy's a multimillionaire, and he told me he said your problem is you're trying to compete with other people. He said he said you're in a class by yourself. Do your thing, just do you, be you, and let the chips fall where they may. So that's what I'm trying to focus on now in my life.
Yeah. So I'm going to be on Wednesday night with Tommy and Matt.
Nice.
So I don't know. You want to give a plug for that show?
Well, absolutely. Go ahead and give them a plug, man.
So I don't remember what time. Sorry. I had a really long day, so my brain's getting a little foggy. Do you know what time they come on Wednesday?
They're on 8 Eastern time. Tommy's
that's
right now.
Yeah, 8 Eastern time. Yeah. So I'll be on with them, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I'll share that on my Facebook page for people that are connected.
Cool. Yeah, I'll make sure that I'm tuned in for that. Yep, Tommy says 8 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, sorry about it, Tommy. My brain's kind of like fried at the moment.
Yeah, and you'll have a great time with these guys, because I've been on with them and they're awesome. They have really good chemistry, and Matt, he's just man, their whole layout, their show layout, it makes us look like amateurs by comparison. Matt's
well, they're younger.
Yeah. But anyway, they're really good. They're really good. I want to give a shout out. I see my cousin Jared Ford is out there, and Jared is he's an amazing husband and father and businessman. One of the things is back in the day when I was doing SAP consulting, I helped him get into that, and he's taken that and ran with it. And now that he's running his late father's business, doing taxes down in Alabama, and he's a fitness guru. You have to look at this guy. He's a married guy, but he does these shirtless photos, because he's a complete stud. And he's my cousin, and I'm really proud of him. So Jared, that's a shout out to you, man.
All right, Derrick, it was a great. Hopefully, people enjoyed this. I hope people enjoyed it. Let us know in the comments.
Yep.
Let us know if you didn't enjoy it. We want all the feedback we can
all
get.
The feedback.
It's gonna help us. We do this because we love it. We enjoy it. We would do it if there wasn't an audience, I think. But also, our audience is very important to us. We want to make it. You're spending your Friday night with us, so we want to make sure that it's adding value to your life and worthwhile for you. So thank you for coming to our TED Talk, Derrick. Drive safely, man, and just great being with you again.
Thanks, brother. And listen, I told you, privately, I'm going to tell you publicly that, that being on with you tonight was a great birthday present. Thank you for sharing your time with me.
Yeah, thank you for letting me. Yeah.
All right. So until the next time, everybody, peace and hair grease.
Yeah.